we got a chance to speak to the Oscar winning director of Mufasa, The Lion King. Check out our conversation with Barry Jenkins. First of all, let me say, I went into this obviously thinking, what is the director of Moonlight and Beale Street doing
hmm
making this prequel? And then after watching the movie, I realized it's got Barry Jenkins' fingerprints all over it. Uh, and so I was wondering if you could talk to me about doing that because I think it's miraculous that movies get made. And as a filmmaker,
Mhm.
you have to watch every single element. You've got so many things to look out for. And yet,
Yeah.
with this one, there is this added thing of
Mhm.
animation and cutting edge technology.
Mhm.
What was that like? And how did that influence your process as a filmmaker?
Yeah, I tried to not let it affect my process. Really with my storytelling, it comes down to characters. What is the character feeling? What are they yearning for? What are they thinking? What do they think they want? What do they actually want? What do they think they need? What do they actually need? And I felt in this script, all those things were present. And so the technology, it was just almost like a barrier to entry. And
Right,
yet these tools are very new, so not very many people have used them. So it wasn't like there was this like 800-page rule book you had to learn or
right.
textbook to figure out how to make these films. It was as new as my experience would be sort of stepping into it. And so once I recognized that and accepted it, I just plowed into figuring out what is the dynamic between the characters, which I will say, you mentioned Moonlight and Beale Street. There's so many things about Mufasa's journey in this film that kind of mirrors the journey that a character like Chiron goes through in Moonlight.
Right. Yeah. And also, and actually, even, and with Scar as well. I mean, just these
Mhm.
ideas of what masculinity is
Yep,
and
yep.
how Scar has to confront that.
Yeah, ideas of what masculinity is, this idea of making choices for yourself, of choosing the lessons you will receive and the ones you reject, either out of bitterness or convenience. I think all
Yeah.
those things are very present in the work that we've done before this one. And yet, this is The Lion King. The scale of it is so massive, by which I mean there are so many people who know and love these characters. And so I feel like very rich terrain to speak to just like a very, very broad spectrum of people.
Absolutely. Can you talk to me about some of the brilliant and self-aware
Mhm.
subversions that you include in the movie? From Timon and Pumbaa making a joke about Simba singing Hakuna Matata after his father just died,
He
to
sang that
Bye
song for
Bye,
6 years straight, which
six
is
years, right?
hard.
And to the line in Bye Bye about
Mhm.
the circle of life just being a way to talk about predators and prey. Like when I
Mhm.
heard that in the cinema, I gasped.
Yeah.
I was like, how did Disney let him get away with that one?
Well, it wasn't even about Disney letting me get away with anything. When they came to me, they said very clearly, we want you to put your voice into Mufasa. It wasn't about them driving my voice
Right.
around. I found it to be very encouraging and very inspiring. And then in both those instances, I'm working with really brilliant people. I'm almost certain that line about he sang that song for 6 years straight. Well, who didn't? That was kind of riffed with Seth and Billy.
Right.
Jeff Nathanson, the screenwriter, had written a really good like setup, and then the punchline they sort of found. And then, Lin is just so great. He and I, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote the songs, we went back and forth on this idea of the circle of life, the circle of life. The
Yeah.
circle is broken was this line that kept just jumping into our heads. And that's where Lin came up with that line, a pretty way to say there are predators and prey, which is really wonderful because you're listening to the song. It's a bop, it's an earworm.
It
Kids
is.
are singing the song, and then they're going to understand, what that means, and what Kiros is really saying. And then I think the film and Mufasa through living his life, of course, rebuts it, which is what
Yeah.
The Lion King is so good at.
Oh, it's such a great song. I also wanted to talk to you about the decision to
Mhm.
make the lions a little more animated and expressive
Mhm.
versus what was in the first movie. And I think it's something that kind of worked well with The Little Mermaid and their
Mhm.
animated characters and making them a little more cartoony. Could
Mhm.
you talk to me about that? Because I think it works better.
Mhm. Yeah, it wasn't about making them more cartoony. When I talk about this, I think about it like, when the first iPhone came out, I thought that was the most cutting edge technology like on the planet. And if I
Yeah.
saw one right now, obviously I wouldn't think that it was as cutting edge as this 16 Pro sitting next to me. And yet this will never compare to the feeling of seeing the original iPhone for the first time. I think of the animation in the 2019, which seeing those lions that way, it was kind of shocking how photoreal they were. And I think now our eyes just adjusted. One of the things that we did do in making this film was to try to really lean into creating nonverbal communication that human beings could understand, that children could understand between these lions, both through physical blocking, how they respond, somebody steps towards you, you immediately step away. That communicates you're unsure, you're afraid. And also, too, by doing things with the setting of the jaw, the lifting of the eye, we did try to bring a little bit more expressiveness into it, but we still wanted to behave by the rules of this photorealistic, I'd say, depiction of these lions.
Very cool. I've got time for one more question, and I just wanted to go back very quickly
Mhm.
to that process of working with technology and acting. I'm curious when you're dealing with actors, and of course you're doing these voice acting performances,
Mhm.
and then of course you've got to work with the animation as well. Is it a
Yep.
matter of actually doing that twice now? Because
Oh, more than twice. We had to do it like so many times. There's also a whole group of storyboard artists. And then there's the animators who animate for our production sort of camera, and then the animators who animate what you saw in the cinema. But the really big breakthrough for us, because I really felt like, I love nonverbal communication. You mentioned Moonlight. There's so many
yeah,
times, it's a very quiet film, but characters will do things and you'll see the other character respond with the physical gesture. And the camera
which was the
responds to
one
that as
thing I noticed with Mufasa was
well.
you had a lot of moments where we focused on the eyes of the
Exactly.
characters. Yeah.
It was focusing on the eyes and getting a camera that could react to that focus on the eyes. And so we actually evolved a process where typically in animation, you don't have a camera that's in a physical space filming the characters as they're actually moving, but we found a way to unlock the technology so that we could do that. And I think this thing you're talking about, this emotiveness, this expressiveness, I think it really comes out of the synchronicity between the blocking of the characters by the animators who are actually in the suits, so they're kind of drawing with their bodies in this way, the first draft of the animation, and the camera responding to that in real time.
Oh, that is so cool. Barry, I'm all out of time, but thank you so much for yours. And can I just say, I've done so many of these interviews. It's very rare that I've seen someone this excited about the
I mean,
technology and all of that stuff. It's
well,
really
it
cool.
was it was such a it was such an interesting process making this movie. I'm someone I grew up very poor, and I remember thinking that I couldn't figure out how to make films because I didn't have an understanding of the technology. I was back in that place with the
Right.
making of film, but that old experience taught me just get enough language, by which I mean understand the technology enough to then speak in your voice, and that's what we did. And so I'm really excited to talk about it.
That is so cool. And congratulations on the movie, man.
Cool. Thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
Cheers. Thank you so much. That was director Barry Jenkins. Go check out Mufasa, the Lion King, on the biggest screen you can find. Let us know what you think after you've seen it. Sound off in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching.